What are the main strategic ideas in the Dutch Defense Stonewall Variation? Have you ever wondered how a solid pawn structure can shape the course of a chess game? The Dutch Defense Stonewall Variation is a perfect example of this. Let's break down the main strategic ideas behind this opening. The Dutch Defense Stonewall Variation starts with the moves 1, pawn to d4, pawn to f5, 2, pawn to c4, knight to f6, 3, pawn to g3, pawn to e6, and 4, bishop to g2, pawn to d5. This setup creates a strong pawn formation that can be quite challenging for white to break through. One of the key concepts in this variation is central control. Black aims to control the central squares with pawns on d5 and f5. This limits white's options and allows black to develop pieces more freely. Speaking of development, black often focuses on getting knights and the queen into play quickly. This helps to apply pressure on white's position and can lead to aggressive tactics later on. Another strategic idea for black is to launch a kingside attack. This is typically done by placing a knight on e4 and following up with moves like pawn to g5, queen to e8, and queen to h5. This strategy can exploit any weaknesses in white's position, especially if white is slow to develop. Now, what about counterplay? If white plays pawn to c5, black usually responds with pawn to e5. This challenges white's control of the center and can lead to a more open position, where black's pieces can become more active. The bishop on c8 is often considered less effective due to the pawn on e6. However, black can improve its position by playing pawn to b6, bishop to b7, and then pawn to c5. This enhances the bishop's mobility and supports the central pawns. On the other hand, white has its own strategic ideas. A common plan is to expand on the queenside with moves like pawn to c5, pawn to b4, and pawn to a4. This aims to create weaknesses in black's queenside structure. White may also look for a breakthrough in the center with pawn to e4. However, this requires careful planning to avoid weakening the kingside. To prevent black's counterplay, white might play bishop to f4. This move keeps the center stable and limits black's options for counterattacks. When building a repertoire around the Dutch Defense Stonewall Variation, it is essential for black to be ready to counter white's queenside expansion effectively. This means knowing how to challenge white's central control while preparing for a timely kingside attack. For white, the focus should be on coordinating pieces to support the queenside expansion while keeping an eye on black's potential counterplay. This opening is appealing for those who enjoy a solid and strategic game with chances for counterattacks. Understanding these strategic ideas can help players navigate the complexities of the Dutch Defense Stonewall Variation and improve their overall game.